Hi there, welcome to The Real Agenda with me, Tom Burgess. Thanks indeed for joining us. Now, for many, life can seem unfair, whether it affects us directly or someone we know. Millions of people suffer unnecessary financial hardship every day, but it needn't be that way. And it's more than just financial. Today, we talk about fairness, what it means, and how we can make our society fairer. And back in 2019, I talked with Julian Richer, and this was for the Profit for Purpose series on the Real Agenda Network. Now, Julian, as many of you know, is the founder of the home entertainment retailer Richer Sounds, which is now run by an employee-owned trust. Now, Julian is a man with a new mission, an active political campaigner who has set up 3 campaigning groups, 0 Hours Justice, Good Business Charter and Tax Watch, all doing valuable work. And he's laid out some of his principles in his book, The Ethical Capitalist. And when we last met, Julian mentioned about that his next project could be what he called the Fairness Foundation. I thought, well, that sounds interesting. I wonder what that's going to be. Well, the Fairness Foundation was launched in December 21, and I was pleased to find out that one of my friends from Tax Justice Network was indeed the director. So I thought it'd be good to learn more. So today we'll be talking to Will Snell, who's the director of the newly formed Fairness Foundation. I started by asking Will, why was the Fairness Foundation set up?
We set up the Fairness Foundation because we felt that society in the UK doesn't really have a common understanding or definition of what a fair society should look like and how we can define fairness. And of course, there'll always be some element of disagreement around that. But we felt that there was the potential to try to build a vision of a fair society that could attract support from a majority of the population, and that doing so would enable us to have a more constructive national conversation, if you like, but that doesn't sound too grand, about how to make society more fair. And we feel that fairness, because it's so instinctive and innate, is an incredibly important concept to have a shared vision of and a shared understanding of, and that it also has huge potential to attract this majority support. It's a much less divisive term, for example, than something like equality.
So how would you define fairness, or how would you describe fairness?
So we've spent a lot of time thinking about this and talking to a wide range of people about it, and we wouldn't pretend to have the final answer. We see this as being the start of a conversation rather than us coming along and saying, well, here it is, let's move on. But we think that there are 5 building blocks of a fair society, if you like, and we've called these the Fair Necessities, which is the title of this document that we published. In summary, the 5 things are proportionality, that everyone should be rewarded in proportion to their effort and talents. Secondly, equal opportunities, that everyone should have the same substantive opportunities to realise their potential. And that word substantive, really important. I can come back to that if you like. Thirdly, reciprocity, that everyone contributes to fairness, to society, as far as they can, and is supported by society in turn when they need it. 4th, basic needs. Everyone's basic needs are met and no one lives in poverty. And finally, the idea of equal treatment, of kind of fair process, if you like. Well, in terms of those processes in society and institutions, but also in terms of things like respect and social status and political influence and public services. Although there's a caveat there, which is that the idea of equity, that some people need to be treated differently to have the same opportunities as everyone else.
What do you set out to achieve?
We're trying to change the terms of the debate around fairness in the country, and in particular to get across this idea that inequality has become so extreme in the UK, both in terms of wealth inequality and income inequality, that the notion that everyone has the same opportunities to make the most of their potential, and that we live in a meritocratic society is in cloud cuckoo land. That it isn't the case that we all have the same life chances, because unequal outcomes, to the extreme extent that they've reached, make that impossible, and therefore that we need to make a series of substantial changes to the way that our society and economy is organised in order to deliver those equal opportunities. I'd say that is the main message that we want to get across over the next few years.
What changes would you like to see? I mean, we can't disagree with the fair necessities, and as you said, a lot of most people believe in a fair society, but how are we going to get there?
So I think there are a number of areas, and they're all interrelated. They all affect each other and need to be tackled in parallel. So the first I'd say is obviously education. Everyone talks about education in the context of this kind of debate, and that's making sure that inequities in terms of the provision of education are ironed out, and also, for example, making sure that early years education is better, it's more affordable, and provided universally. I think that is a given that most people can agree upon, even if there are debates around some of the mechanics of how those things are delivered, for example. But I would go beyond that and say that by itself is not enough. Education is fundamental, but it does feel at the moment as though the education system is being asked to solve a lot of society's problems at the same time, and teachers are being asked to act as social workers and so on. And that we can't deliver genuinely equal life chances unless we also sort out child poverty, for example. Child poverty is really the main form of poverty in the UK that's increasing at the moment. 26% of couples with children and 48% of single parents live in poverty at the moment. So unless we take action to tackle that and to get rid of child poverty, then we can't pretend to be providing equal life chances for every child. And that means action in several sectors: housing, in-work poverty, changes to the social security system, changes to the tax system, and so on.
So I'm right with you, on what you're trying to achieve, but how, for instance, are you different, or how are you similar to other campaigning groups, or how indeed can you work together with other groups? First of all, how are you different?
Yeah. And this was the key question that we were grappling with when we set up the Fairness Foundation and scoping it out. How I think we're different is that we are not focused on particular policy changes. We're arguing more at the level of changing the kind of underlying narrative and the structures, if you like. And so what we're trying to do is to, if you like, clear the path for those who are calling for specific policy changes by changing the terms of the debate, so that when they are arguing for those policy changes, they are able to reach and influence a wider audience. So very much working in lockstep with those sorts of campaigns, but providing a kind of complementary voice that's trying to look across the piece at all the intersecting issues that people are campaigning for change on individually.
So how will you do this? Are you looking for are you reaching out to certain organisations? Are you targeting certain groups like, politicians or the media or whatever? How do you plan to go about it?
So we'll be working in partnership with a range of organisations who are advocating or campaigning in some way for particular changes to build if you like, a fairer society. And that would include charities and other non-profits, and think tanks and academics.
Can you give me some examples?
For example, on think tanks, people like the Resolution Foundation, IPPR, Bright Blue, a range, and working across the political spectrum. And then again, a range of charities and non-profits like Joseph Rowntree Foundation, Child Poverty Action Group, etc. Academics from a wide variety of universities across the country. And in terms of audiences, the idea is to, as I say, change the terms of the debate and to inspire the kind of creation of a fair society. That's targeting the public at large, it's targeting the media, and it's targeting policymakers. And so we'll have a few different audiences. And I think what's key for us is going to be finding unusual messengers who are able to reach and influence those particular audiences, and it's not just the kind of usual suspects, if you like. So, for example, we'll be looking to build a network of business people and other, if you like, successful Britons to make the case for why we need a fairer society and how to build one.
Oh, who else is involved in the Fairness Foundation?
The original idea came from Julian Richer, the retail entrepreneur and philanthropist who is behind the Richer Sounds hi-fi chain. And he's on the board of trustees, and also on the board of trustees we have Emma Revy, who's the chief exec of the Trussell Trust, Francis Crook, recently departed chief exec of the Howard League for Penal Reform, and Pete Gladwell, who is in charge of social investment at Legal & General. And then we have an editorial board of people who are providing us with tactical and editorial advice on partnerships and activities, and that's chaired by Will Hutton, who's been very heavily involved in the development of the Fair Necessities. We also have Alison Garnham at the Child Poverty Action Group, Sundar Katwala at British Future, Adrian Pabst at the University of Kent, and Bobby Duffy at King's College London.
What are your actual plans then in the coming year? What's a part of your agenda for the next 12 months?
We're going to be treating the next year as a bit of a kind of experiment. So we're going to be trying a few different approaches. We've got fairly limited resources, and we've obviously got this incredibly ambitious agenda and very broad range of issues that we're working on. So we'll be trying a few things to see what works well. We'll be looking to get into the media debate and influence that debate and influence the kind of policy-making world, if you like. So running, for example, joint events with academics, and we've already started a series of joint events with King's College London, which continues into the new year. We will be commissioning and publishing articles about fairness in relation to upcoming policy plans and proposals. So, for example, we'll be publishing a review, if you like, of the Levelling Up white paper that's due, critiquing it from a fairness perspective and doing similar pieces of work around other upcoming announcements over the course of the year. And we're also planning on producing a scorecard, probably on an annual basis, which will look at how fair is the UK and taking information from a range of published sources, existing indicators, and comparing them across a range of sectors and also to the 5 fair necessities, as well as looking at information about public attitudes to those and comparing attitudes to the reality.
What can we, the people, do then to encourage greater fairness and get behind what you're doing?
That's a great question. At the moment, I would say please sign up to the newsletter and follow us on Twitter and keep an eye on what we're doing on the website. One of my priorities for the next few weeks is to hire a head of communications who I really want to focus on reaching a broad audience. I was talking before about reaching kind of policy-making bubble, the Westminster bubble, if you like. And I'm really keen that while we do that, we don't just do that we focus on building a much broader following. And we'll be looking, for example, to set up partnerships with existing organisations to run particular campaigns or to raise awareness. So look out for those as they come out over the next year or two.
You've got the fair necessities, these 5 fair necessities. Are they sort of all equal, or are there any particular one that you'd like to elaborate on more that you think is very important?
So I think that this equal opportunities necessity is a really important one. I think I said before that the word substantive equality of opportunities is really important because equal opportunities can be seen in quite limited terms as just the removal of very obvious sort of legal barriers to opportunity, if that, for example, around racial or gender discrimination. The notion of equal opportunities that we're promoting is very much more deep-rooted than that, this idea of fair equality of opportunity, that the barriers that prevent people from having genuinely equal life chances are systematically dismantled and not just compensated for through positive action schemes or something like that, but are actually dismantled, whether that is around child poverty or a housing market that doesn't provide people with the opportunity to live in affordable and decent housing. If you like, the breakdown of a social contract that means that people, by working hard can no longer guarantee themselves and their families a decent standard of life. So that's really important for us, that when we talk about equal opportunities, we're talking about something quite substantive and requiring fairly dramatic changes to the way that our society and economy is structured.
So you're not necessarily putting forward any specific policy proposals, but trying to raise the level of awareness and involvement and encouragement in this discussion and moving this agenda forward. Is that right? Yeah,
that's right. And I think to raise awareness of the breadth of policy areas that need to be looked at when you're trying to solve these issues, that you can't just solve them through one or two targeted interventions here or there, that they need to be broad-ranging and joined up and also universal. Again, go back to this other fair necessity around reciprocity, that you contribute to society when you can, by paying tax in particular, and then when you need support from society, you're able to draw on the piggy bank, if you like, and this, getting away from the sort of them and us idea that we have a welfare system that's just designed to support those at the bottom, to a social security system that everyone's supported by, in childhood, in old age, and also when they are, for whatever reason, unable to work, which might be for the whole of their lives, or it might be for a particular point in life. And that we have case studies from other countries, particularly in Northern Europe, for example, where there is a universal social security system that enjoys a high level of public support, because everyone understands that you contribute to it when you're working and when you're able to, and it helps everyone, including, for example, the provision of free childcare when needed at various points in their lives.
Okay, well, to sum up, what would you like people who may be listening to this or hear about the Fairness Foundation, what would you like them to do next?
Well, because we're just starting up, all I'd say is please keep an eye on what we're doing. Sign up for email updates. Follow us on Twitter, for example. In the long term, that's a very basic answer in the short term, but in the long term, we will be looking to engage with people in much more meaningful ways, and we'd love people's support when the time comes, whether that's through signing up to petitions or supporting us in other ways. But we will be looking to engage with people about what fairness means to them. We'll be running surveys and publishing information about some of the findings from those surveys, and we'll be looking to build a set of partnerships with a range of organisations so that we can really have encourage a deep and meaningful public conversation about fairness. And so, I'd just say for the moment, please keep an eye on the website and what we're doing.
Okay, well, I wish you the best of luck with that, Will, and it's great work that you're doing, and you're putting fairness at the top, pushing fairness to the top of the agenda. So I wish you all the best, and hope to see some interesting developments over the coming year. So thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Tom. Great talking to you.
You can find out more and sign up for updates at fairnessfoundation.com, and I urge you to do so. I think the Fairness Foundation sets out to do what it sets out to do will help strengthen the message that we can make change happen. What the Fairness Foundation is doing actually complements the work of other campaigning groups. One group already making an impact is Compassion in Politics, founded by my friends Jennifer Nadel and Matt Hawkins. It has got over 100 MPs to sign up to a compassionate code of conduct, set up an all-party group on compassionate politics, and has plans for a Compassion Act. You can find out more at compassionandpolitics.com. So what do you think? I'd love to hear your views. You can email me at tom@tomburgess.com or contact us via Twitter at RealAgendaNet. Also on the Real Agenda Network is the From Here to Prosperity podcast series. You can listen and subscribe free on all major podcast providers such as Amazon, Apple, Google and Spotify and many more. And this series is based on the content of my book called From Here to Prosperity, copies of which are available direct from the publishers at shepherdwalwyn.com or from good online and local bookstores. Also listen out for the next series of Across the Benches, where two MPs from different political parties discuss what they have in common. The first one featured Jess Phillips and Maria Miller and was hosted by Gavin Essner, formerly BBC Newsnight. This series is available on the Real Agenda Network. A special thanks to our sponsors, Switch, the workstation for your browser. Do you find yourself with too many tabs open and losing your place? Try www.switchextension.com. Free to download, save yourself time. I do, and it's great. Now, one thing is certain, people want to see change to a more compassionate and just society, as well as more courageous politicians prepared to do the right thing for people over party. Now, it's not happening, but it can. It's urgent, and it's up to us to make it happen. That's the Real Agenda. I'm Tom Burgess. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.